everybody is automatically put on mute as they join. And we are the children's cabinet on our website. We live stream the recommendations panel, so you will see that and a recording for anybody new and joining in our space today. And we will get started right at 9. It's good to see everybody this morning joining. I think we have a few folks who are going to be joining late, segueing off. So we will be in and out. Cornelia, you're first on my screen, and I love your hair, by the way.
Thank you.
So cute.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm 59 in a month. When something happens when you're like almost 60, where you decide you want to try to look as young as possible. And so I decided that I needed curly hair and highlights. So yeah. It worked because I got carded at my son's birthday the other day, and so it was like the highlight of all of 2026, like literally. And so yeah, I'm still. It was like in May 1st. I'm still talking about it. So yeah.
I love it, and you look amazing. So
Thank you.
yes, and we should just do that anytime. Self-care is great.
Yes.
Oh, that made my day, like that. And how's everybody confused? Is everybody thinking like today, what's the weekend going to look like? Because we're off our normal Friday cadence. And I told Lindsay when everybody joined, or when we were joining, that I'm like thinking today's my Friday, but it really kind of is my Friday. So thanks to everybody. Okay, welcome. Oh, and I will let Lindsay take care of our team's guests. All right. Good morning, everybody. My name is Melissa Schoenberger, and I am the Early Childhood Systems Specialist with the Children's Cabinet, and wanting to welcome you today to the Early Childhood Recommendations Panel. And I just want to give a thank you to all of the panel members who graciously allowed us to switch our days so that I can attend graduation tomorrow here in Hayes. So just wanted to give a thank you to everybody joining, and as we are off our regular cadence. But Lindsay, if you want to move forward on the next slide. And we have lots of guests today because we have a really great presentation. So I just wanted to remind our panel members and all of our guests joining. This is a remote meeting, and we do follow the Open Meetings Act, meaning that even though we do have a chat function on our Zoom, we do not use our chat function on Zoom. If I see any questions that get placed in the chat, Lindsay or I will make sure that we bring those out into our regular conversation. So, and making sure everybody uses the raise hand feature if they have a question. So just a little bit of rules of this remote meeting. So if we can move to the next one. And for everybody joining, and especially all of our special guests today, I always like to start our recommendations panel with a basic foundation of why we're even here. There is an executive order that requires the Children's Cabinet to serve as an advisory group within our state structure. And that was established in 1999. And it really provides a conversation, a point of conversation where we can bring early childhood issues to light, where we serve as the early childhood advisory council at a federal level, and really just have what I want to say is enriching conversation about the early childhood ecosystem that supports the All In for Kansas Kids strategic plan. So that's why we're here today. And all of our panel members received your agenda in advance. And we're right smack dab into the welcome. And then in a minute, we will segue to some very specific items that we have to take care of. And then we're going to pass it over to one of our panel members who also serves and is an advisory capacity to the Kansas Office of Early Childhood. And she will do a quick focus group this morning. So even with our guests, we welcome you to participate in that focus group with those questions. And then we will have a segment, Kansas Open Forum, Kansas in the News, panel introductions, child care zone presentation systems updates, and key takeaways. So that being said, we do not want to miss any time for Cornelia. We will take care of some of our very specific work. So as I shared, we have 2 action items. Everybody was given the agenda in advance. So if I could have one of our panel members make a motion and then another panel member second that motion, I would greatly appreciate that. To approve the May agenda, I guess I really should say.
This is Becca Meitler, and I move to approve the May agenda.
Thank you, Becca. If I can have somebody second that, please.
I, Janelle Dean, second to approve the May agenda.
Thank you, Janelle. If I could have everybody raise their hands or say aye to approve our May agenda. Thank you. It looks like that approval moved unanimously. So then we will move on to the approval of the April minutes. If I could have somebody please come off mute and make a motion to approve those. Of the April minutes, I think I said May.
This is Sarah Bloom. I make a motion to approve the April minutes.
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you for clarifying that again, too. If I could get somebody to second approval of our April minutes, please.
This is Patty Peschel. Oh, and I second second to approve the April minutes.
Thank you, Patty. And if I could get everybody to vote on that. And it looks like those pass unanimously. Okay, great. We have taken care of our formal business for the day, and now we get to have fun. So I'm going to pass this over to Cornelia and let her lead this next. Oh, and I see, is Hillary joining you, Cornelia, or is it just going to be you this morning?
Well, I don't see Hillary on. She's also on the committee with me, so I invited her to share on the advisory committee. So I invited her to share in the discussion, but I don't see her on. So I think that it's just me.
Okay, well, we'll just pass it to you. Thank you.
Very good, very good. So good morning, everyone. And as was stated, my name is Cornelia Stevens. I'm Executive Director of Top Early Learning Centers, and I am also an advisory member for the Kansas Office of Early Childhood. We've had a couple of conversations in our recommendation panel meetings about the Office of Early Childhood. And the main purpose of the Office of Early Childhood is really to streamline and consolidate kind of the disfragmented, our current early childhood systems are very fragmented. And so the Office of Early Childhood's purpose is to streamline services for children and families, but also providers, so that it's easier for people to access services that are needed, but also makes a little more sense for those of us who are providing services to Kansas children and families. A document was sent out to everyone with some ideas or some guidance on some of the priorities or things that the advisory committee identified that the recommendations panel, the Kansas Office of Early Childhood should really focus on. So hopefully you all had a chance to review those strategies, those ideas, the things that we want them to become like the priorities for the office. And we'd like to get your feedback. And so those of us that are as advisory members have been asked to go out to network and talk to people within our communities, both providers as well as families who are receiving services. And and get feedback on whether or not we've identified the right priorities. If there's anything that's missing, not missing, what do we need to reconsider, to reevaluate, and or clarify? And so hopefully you've all had a chance to look at the document. Do you all, I don't know, okay, hopefully everybody has. So we're just going to assume that everybody has had a chance to look at the document, and we're going to go with that. And the first question that we have is, are these the right priorities for the Kansas Office of Early Childhood? And if not, why? Why not? And if something's missing, what's missing from that? Natalie?
Good morning. Hey, we just had a quick thought from the KSDE team. It talks about engaging K through 12 schools, just adding pre-K through 12, maybe. I don't know if there was some intention between not having pre-K on there, but we are trying to instill that pre-K through 12 verbiage across the state. So that was a suggestion that we had.
That's good. That's good. Thank you for that. Trina?
Yeah, coming from the home visiting perspective, home visiting is not in here except for one place. And even in the workforce development, it's all focused on childcare. And that was a fear of a lot of us when we went into this process, was that childcare was going to be the focus and that home visiting was going to kind of get lost in the shuffle.
Okay.
And I think that this document doesn't help alleviate those fears.
Mhm.
And so when a lot of us looked at it in my own agency, that was the first thing that a lot of my program directors said was, wait a second, okay, we've got home visiting in this first section, but then the rest of the document is very childcare focused. So that was our biggest comment.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else have a comment in terms of whether or not these are the right priorities, and if there's something missing? Is there something missing that should be a priority that's not on the document? If not, is there anything on the list that you would like to see refined, clarified, or expanded? Natalie?
It's me again.
You're good.
So under engage pre-K through 12, the first bullet says provide guidance and collaboration with the Kansas Department of Education on how they can operate programs and partner with existing programs. Just possibly clarifying what kind of programs do we want to call out: home visiting, licensed childcare, preschool, all of the above, but just really making clarifying what programs we're talking about.
Okay, very good. Anything else that you see that needs to be refined, clarified, or expanded? Okay, Martes?
I do appreciate this information here where it says engage and coordinate with a range of state agencies who have responsibility for programs serving young children. The Kansas State School for the Blind is a state agency that serves children who are blind or visually impaired, birth to 21. And sometimes we don't, people, we've been here for a long time, but we're still spreading the word. So I really appreciate this comment, the range of state agencies.
Good, thank you. Do you, yes, Tabitha?
Hi, I just speaking from like the family engagement level, I see like quite a bit of mention of community, and I think sometimes that gets interpreted as businesses. And so I would love to see some language about family and community in there if that was possible.
Good, okay, good. Tammy?
Going off what Tabitha said, community level partners that work with young children and families.
Okay. So digging even deeper in terms of clarifying what community is. Gotcha.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Any recommendations or thoughts on how the Kansas Office of Early Childhood can best implement these ideas? You know, this has not been done before in Kansas. And so, you know, we looked at models from other states and how they created, you know, similar models or whatnot. You know, a lot of the things we're going to learn as the office is implemented, then you realize what's working, what's not working, and you kind of fix and massage that as you go along. But any thoughts on how we can, how the Office of Early Childhood can best implement these ideas?
So, I'm sorry.
Okay, Tabitha.
Sorry, Tammy, that's okay. I just thought, this is a new idea, but I actually love the model of this recommendations panel. And I know that you guys are speaking to lots of constituents all the time. But I would definitely say something like this could really serve a purpose for the Office of Early Childhood, but also including families. I'm always going to talk about family engagement, but they are, the people that we're serving directly. So that would be my suggestion.
Very good. Good. Tammy.
Yes, I agree with that. And also, just having a clear understanding of who are the other partners beyond what you typically see in early childhood, so providers and home visitors, but those professions as well. Having a clear understanding of actually what's happening at the local level, because it does look different depending on where you are in the state, and understanding who's taking care of our children.
Very good. That's good.
Tabitha, can I ask a clarifying question? Just to make sure that we capture your thought.
Sure.
What you articulated, which I'm struggling saying, is having a similar or this particular group serve as the backbone advisory group to OEC in general. Is that what?
You know what? Either of those, really. I don't
Okay.
know if there could be overlap, but I think just a similar model,
Okay.
even if we didn't have capacity, I think that's totally fine too. But yeah, something similar with a lot of representatives, people interested, vested interest in early childhood.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure we were capturing that correctly.
Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you.
Any other recommendations of how the Kansas Office of Early Childhood can better serve providers or families? Anything that's not been identified here? Desiree.
Desiree Straight. I'm a home childcare provider, and I'm just kind of been listening to everybody. And when they talk about like expanding the engagement to pre-K and the community, I think that there's value in connecting providers with the school districts and the community as well. So I think maybe adding or trying to encourage that as well. So I know that there's been a lot of centers added to our communities, and they have connections, but I don't know. All ages are important, right?
Sure. Very good. Thank you. Maritas?
I also think about elevating the professions, establishing a statewide system, or recognizing early childhood educators to improve morale and retention.
That's good. Good feedback. Thank you. Okay. Natalie.
One more thought. So we were just talking about how it's going to be really helpful for the Office of Early Childhood and other organizations to work together to have a strong understanding of who can respond to what requests. For example, if a school district reaches out to us to indicate they're interested in beginning a childcare program, we need to figure out if it would be better to refer them to like Childcare Aware of Kansas or to the Office of Early Childhood. Just kind of figuring out when we talk about that front door policy, kind of like who do we refer to where. So that's something to think about.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that's been discussed within the model, and this is all, again, new and kind of coming into formation, but almost creating like a position that's kind of a gatekeeper, for questions like that, so that they can really direct people to where they need to be. And there'll be, several people that will be in that role. And so, so if that happens, then I think kind of in what you're stating, Natalie, like who do we go to in this consolidation? Because that can be confusing, for sure. Okay, so we were tasked with, the advisory members were tasked with getting feedback from everyone and have to report out on feedback in June. So if between now and June, you go to sleep and you think of something, because that's how my brain works. I wake up and like, why didn't I mention this or whatever? So please email me or call me if you have anything that you would like to add, in terms of these comments. I'm happy to kind of slip anything in if there's anything else that you would like the office to know. July 1st is the current plan of when all programs and staff are supposed to be integrated into the office. So they're currently in the process right now of kind of shifting programs around for the model. But this is kind of tentative, and then life happens, right? And so, but that's kind of where things are going right now. And so, as I said, this is still a work in progress, and they really feel it's important to get feedback from everybody impacted by the work of the office to know that we do this that they do this right or as best as possible. Yes, Candy.
Hi, Candy Rushing. I just wondered where this document is being sent out, and are providers getting access to see what the model is looking like, and are they on a broader scale able to give feedback?
So this document was basically given to advisory members, and we were tasked with meeting with people within our local communities, and or opportunities like this where I'm on like a statewide group or whatnot. And so it isn't something that's necessarily published where people can give feedback in another form. It is an interesting concept though. And so I kind of like that. So I might, if you're okay with that, put something, put a recommendation out there that because there's going to be people who are missing opportunities like this who might have thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I
Thank
definitely,
you.
pardon?
I just said thank you. Yes, if I had seen the document ahead of time, I feel like I could give better feedback and not duplicate what's already being incorporated.
Yes. And again, yes, I think that's a good idea. There's got to be, is there a way to be able to broadly share this, for more information? And so I'll share that. Thanks, Candy.
Thanks, Cornelia.
Okay, well, thank you all for your feedback. Again, we will take this information, add it to the document, and hopefully have a final document to be able to give everyone in terms of like what the priorities will be. And then as the Office of Early Childhood moves along, maybe we'll have opportunities to share more about kind of the work that's happening, so that we're all involved with the process, because they do definitely want this to be something that helps support everyone, and that means that everybody's voice needs to be at the table. So, so thank you all, and I am now heading to go give the same presentation someplace else at 10 o'clock. So I've got to step out of the meeting, Melissa. So I'm sorry, and to my work group, sorry, I'm not going to be there. So anyhow, you guys take care.
Thank you, Cornelia. As a staff member who is transitioning to the Office of Early Childhood, I had the opportunity. And I see Brenda Bandy is also present today. Her and I were both attending the our Maternal and Child Health Council meeting yesterday, where the OEC Executive Director, Christy Smith, provided an overview. And Candy, to your point, there is a push for communication and understanding, and being able to reach. And with the initial priority, because I just looked up, I'm like, how many more days until July 1st? It's actually 48 days from today. And so just keeping that scope in mind of, one of the main priorities that Christy always shares is ensuring that the Kansas State employees are taken care of, as we all of the nuts and bolts, looking at, do we have email, do we have, or do we have office chairs, very simple things that we don't think about, but really entail that huge move, as they move forward through those 48 days. But I do really appreciate your feedback, Candy. And I know I live in a community where I have an advisory board member like Cornelia, where we had a separate meeting. So these are not formal, they're informal tasks of the advisory. And I do believe what you're going to find out from some of these engagements is what Cornelia just moved forward is some more systematic pointed approaches after getting this. I want to say it's a soft, you have a soft launch and, soft opening. This is a soft gathering of information as we move through. But if there's large meetings in your area, I know Christy really likes to get in front of everybody and has an amazing presentation about the office in addition to the advisory group. So keep that in mind. If there's an opportunity, we would be more than happy to connect you with Director Smith and make that happen. So, and those were my key takeaways from yesterday's presentation that complements Cornelia. Brenda, is there anything that you wanted to share that you from Director Smith's presentation yesterday that you might find valuable to this conversation? I think Brenda is still here with us and she might be gone. Well, I see Brenda is here, but may be engaged in another activity. So we will move on. So thank you, Cornelia, and we will keep the opportunity to share information open. So we will move to our Kansas Open Forum components of our meeting. We do have an opportunity where anybody who's not a part of the panel, as part of a member or an invited guest, but has something really exciting they want to share or really push back in our system, they're more than, we have an opportunity for you to join us and share. We do ask that that be submitted by 5 p.m. before the day preceding the meeting. But in anticipation that we don't have anybody who is wanting to join through that piece, in which we do not have again today, we move forward with our what we like to call our Kansas in the news. And really excited to share in this last legislative session that Governor Kelly signed a bipartisan bill expanding the child care tax credit. It was Senate Bill 82, and really wanted to share that it will strengthen and provide access to areas. But it's a complicated bill. And the current child care tax credit is complicated too. And I, by far, am not an expert and wouldn't even begin to say that I could help and navigate through any of that conversation. But we always have somebody in the early childhood ecosystem where you can phone a friend. And so we have invited our Child Care Aware of Kansas team to join us today, and we have Sarah Mitchell, and she is going to share about an overview of the child care tax credit, because this is a really amazing step, and we have a resource that we're going to share with our panel members, and anybody. We will have that as part of our meeting notes on our website. So I will throw this to Sarah.
Great. Thank you so much, Melissa. Good morning, everyone. Good to see you all. And I am really excited to share with you around this tax credit. I think we all, you hear taxes and everyone gets a little nervous just because early childhood folks, it may not necessarily be within our wheelhouse. But this is an incredible opportunity for us as a state and for businesses and communities across Kansas. So I am thrilled to have the opportunity to share with you all this morning. You can see here on the slide, this is a portion of the resource that you will all be receiving. And we are just going to dive in high level to share some areas in which you can pay a little bit more closely attention to when you receive this resource. So SB 82 made some pretty major updates to employer child care tax credits and investment opportunities. Honestly, this is really one of the strongest workforce support tools that we've seen in a while. Businesses can now receive up to a 75% tax credit for qualifying childcare expenses, with a much higher annual cap and more flexibility through a three-year carry forward. So those pieces are just really exciting for us as a state, and I wanted to just call them out here on this call with you all. And you all know that this is really bigger than just a tax credit. This is about workforce recruitment, retention, helping communities stay strong. We know childcare impacts whether or not parents can work, whether businesses can hire, and whether communities can grow. The exciting part is that businesses don't have to solve this on their own. So we at Child Care of Kansas are positioned to help employers think through what makes sense for their workforce, for communities, and whether that's connecting them to local childcare solutions, training supports, or other resources. We want to be a partner to walk alongside you all in this. One other piece that I want to call out is that this could be really meaningful for rural and smaller communities where on-site childcare may not realistically be an option. This bill creates more flexibility for community-based approaches and partnerships instead of expecting every employer to go out there and just reinvent the wheel. So we partnered with Kansas Action for Children on this piece. And so we have this collaborative handout that you will all receive following this call. Please share that as you're talking with businesses, chambers, economic development groups, or community leaders. We would really encourage you to share the information and connect with us. We want to be your partner. We want to see what is popping up, what you all are hearing out there, and how we can make these childcare solutions feel more accessible, realistic, and impactful here in Kansas. And we certainly want to take advantage of this wonderful opportunity and use this tax credit. So that is kind of my overview, my spiel. I would say to really pay attention to that 75% increase, that 3-year carry forward. And then on the handout, there is a comparison table. So you will see there is a table that compares what was previously in place versus now what has changed with this bill. And so that can also help guide some of your decisions as you are thinking through solutions.
Sarah, are you comfortable taking questions if anybody has any?
I can try. I can certainly try. We'll see what happens.
Just wanted to see if anybody had any questions. Betsy Davis has a question. So Betsy.
Hi, Sarah.
Hello.
Hey, so I do have a question. So one of the things that we have bumped up against in our community is the reporting requirement for businesses. Has that been altered in this new bill? Do you know?
That's a great question. And I do not know that off the top of my head, but we will find out and we can share that back with this group. So that can be some homework on our end. I do know that reporting and those types of constraints sometimes can present some barriers to utilizing some of these resources. So
Yeah.
I think that's a really good call out, and our team will report back and make sure that Melissa has that information, and I can follow up with you too, Betsy.
Okay. Hey, thanks, Sarah.
Maritas has a question.
Sarah, I just want to clarify. Did you say that this graphic will be provided to us and it's okay to share it with different organizations?
Please, absolutely. Yes, and there is a little bit more information on the graphic. So we dive in a little bit more in detail, and yes, please share that out. It is ready for public consumption, and we would love for you to do that.
Even though we can share it also in a newsletter, I serve as the Women's Chamber Network, and this is something I'd like to share. They don't have to reinvent it. It's ready. We can put it in the newsletter. Is that
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, please do. Yeah, thank you for doing that. Yes.
And Sarah, on your resource, is there contact information if anybody has questions?
Yes.
Back to any of the CCA of Kansas consultants?
Absolutely, yes. So we have a QR code here on the resource at the bottom in the right-hand corner that you can utilize to find more information. And then if you reach out, we have shared this with our team broadly within the organization as well. So Tracy, who answers the phones in the office in Salina, she's received a copy of this. So she knows, kind of what is swirling out there. And if you reach out, we will absolutely go ahead and dive in and see how we can support you. And I see Candy's comment in the chat. And yes, Senator Marshall's office did create something as well, and that is circulating a little bit also. So there's more conversation going around about how do we translate some of these opportunities into action.
So since this is live stream, just wanting to share Candy's comment was that there's an additional resource from Senator Marshall's office. And so it's complementary. I'm assuming it's probably some of the same similar information because it supports the bill, but just wanting to clarify that. And Cami Cohorst has her hand up, and Cami is from Child Care Aware of Kansas. And so, yes, please, Cami, join the
Yeah, I just
conversation.
wanted to jump in quick, and I'm sorry I'm traveling, so I'm off screen for a minute. But we have been in communication with the Health Fund and all of the work around, Senator Marshall's flyer and the upcoming meeting that he is having or they're having to discuss this. So I guess I just wanted to throw out that we are doing this collaboratively so that, we are not the experts by any means, and we are navigating and learning as we go along. So just know that, and that there will be more information to follow. This is very new, and so there will be a lot of things will transpire as time goes on. So just know that this is a collaborative effort.
Yep, that's why I wanted to make sure that we understood it was complementary, because I assumed, it's the backbone of Kansas. We were really great about collaboration to make sure the word gets out. And speaking of which, I was curious because we have Sarah Bloom with the Department of Commerce on here. What does that look like, Sarah, on a commerce platform as we support small businesses, which are childcare facilities?
Yeah, thank you. So we will continue to put out any and all tools. We have not created our own tool or resource like this, but we are continually working with small businesses and large businesses for that matter, and making sure that they know of all the resources that are available to them, including childcare, because we all know childcare is economic development, and without it, our communities and our businesses can't thrive and survive. So yeah, we'll continue to push out any of the tools, including the new child care tax credit structure.
Thanks, Sarah. And I see Candy has her hand up.
I just didn't mean to send that message out to everyone. Megan had said she would send out the one pager from Senator Marshall's office. So to clarify, I didn't mean to send that out without context. That was going to get sent behind the scenes. So my apologies.
No, that's okay, Candy. I appreciate that. And I appreciate all the efforts that went into putting this, what for somebody who's not, well versed in any of this type of tax credit, gives me hives, all of that. When I look at that, I just appreciate the effort that CCA of Kansas put together to make sure that it was easily digestible. So I wanted to give a real shout out to Cami and her team to really putting together a document that is easy to understand. And I see Desiree has her hand up, so we will entertain one more question.
Desiree Straight, family child care provider. And so I feel like I have a super basic question that maybe I should know the answer to. So I apologize. So I'm just kind of looking at some details here, and maybe I just need clarification on how this tax credit is used. I see it says that they don't have to have something on site. So is that financially able to support their employees to pay for childcare in any environment? So I don't know, maybe a little clarification for my brain, so I know how to like encourage people to utilize it.
Yes, absolutely. So, we really are able to utilize this for expanded support for community childcare capacity. So, that looks a little bit more like, family tuition assistance, and certainly identifying ways in which those are available in the community, and wanting to make sure that families still have choice and have, that autonomy to make those decisions for their children and their families. So the idea is really that businesses can utilize this to then recognize that childcare is a necessary benefit to their employees to being able to show up to work every day. And our hope is that we will be able to navigate this together to make sure that it is benefiting family childcare providers by way of, businesses utilizing this, and family childcare providers being able to serve those children and families as well. So, I'm kind of green in this. I'm not going to lie to you, but I do think that these are all really great points of discussion as well, because then we can highlight these as maybe potential communication blasts where we can get some clarification and share that back out as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you for joining us, and looking forward to any additional support that I know your team mobilizes immediately around as we move forward and navigate this new bill. It's just really exciting to see work moving forward to support communities. So thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Lindsay, if we can move forward. Okay, so we are still doing our panel introductions over this year, and I believe we have two panel members that are joining us that we had pulled out for this for today's presentation. So Cami, if you are still available, I know you said you're traveling. If you could come off mute and do a quick introduction of yourself, we would all love that.
Yes, yes, yes. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you for having me today. I am Cami Cohorst. I am actually the interim executive director for Child Care Aware of Kansas. I took over Christy's position. So as she left, I kind of moved in for the moment. But a little background on me. I kind of started off my career in mental health fresh out of college. I did some mental health case management and parent support education, and then quickly moved into early care and education. So I've done a lot of work in childcare licensing. I go back to the Smart Start days, did some block grant work, all of the things. So I also took kind of a leave of absence from the nonprofit world for a while and did some tech business development work, and then came back to Child Care Aware of Kansas. So that's where I'm at currently. But outside of work, I reside in Washington County, which is up kind of in the Marysville area. I am approximately 7 miles from the Kansas-Nebraska border. Fun fact, I'm actually closer to Lincoln, Nebraska and Omaha, Nebraska than I am to Topeka. So I have 3 children ranging in age from, I have twins that are 17, boy and a girl, and then a 12-year-old son. And we spend most of our time attending sporting events and doing fun things outdoors. So that is just a little background on myself. And it's great to be a part of the panel.
Thank you, Cami. And I should have prefaced before we began introductions that as your chair, it is really important for me that everybody who's joining and on our live stream, that we do introductions over the years so that everybody has an appreciation like I do of the depth of knowledge that the panel brings. And there is such a variety of members because it's an application, and I just really felt it was important that over this panel year that we take a minute and let panel members introduce themselves. If we did that in one meeting, that's all we would do. So we have spread it out over the year. And then I believe we have Becca, who is also present. And if she would like to do a brief introduction, thank you.
Sure. Hi, Becca Meitler here. I'm currently an instructor at Kansas State University in the Early Childhood Education Unit. I have been in the field about 19 years and held many hats. And most recently, prior to joining K-State this past year, I worked at our local elementary school as a universal pre-K ECSE teacher for about 5 years. Prior to that, I was at K-State at our lab school. So I've worked in many capacities. My family lives right outside Manhattan, Kansas. So I commute in on Highway 24. If anyone else does that, it's fun to navigate each day. I have 2 boys. One is 10, one just turned 14. So we are navigating new driving experiences in my household. I appreciate being here with all of these like-minded people and just love the field and everything that we can do to support children and families across our beautiful state. So glad to be here.
So Becca, I will tell you, my tenure in state work took me on that highway, and I get motion sick, and that was the first time as I physically was driving, I thought I need to pull over. Like I don't feel very well because of all of the, and you know, so there's a misnomer that Kansas is flat, and it's not all flat. No, not at all. So and I would be petrified to have new drivers. So giving you a mom shout out for that. But I saw Tabitha had her hand raised.
If I did, that was accidental. Are you talking
Okay,
about
well, I
me?
just didn't want to overlook you, Tabitha. We do not have all of our panel members slated today that we're going to give introductions because we are in a live meeting. Do not have access to the list of who's went and who is not. So I am going to pause and ask for a volunteer. If you have not introduced yourself, because we have time, if you would like to come off mute or raise your hand and let me know, and we would entertain letting you fill in for David, Laura, or Chisa. I think that, yeah. Okay, and I am really struggling pronouncing names today, and it's Shira, correct?
Correct.
Okay, with a name of last name like Schoenberger, I am very mindful of making sure that I pause and I just don't just assume. So Shira, if you would introduce yourself, please.
Hi, I'm Shira Bedell. I am an early childhood special education coordinator in Garner, Edgerton. but I live in Ottawa. I started my career in early childhood when I was 18, volunteering at Head Start. Then was an in-home provider, then a preschool director on the Missouri side before I became a early childhood special education teacher. I've been in this district for 10 years, which I have to remember because my son is 10 and I got pregnant my first year teaching. And so I tell people all the time that I'm very lucky that I get to work in a field that I'm passionate about. So it doesn't seem like work because I am really passionate about early childhood education and just educating young children from not before birth until probably kindergarten. After kindergarten, I kind of start losing my way a little bit with them. But yeah, I'm just really committed to this work. I've been enjoying learning the depth of knowledge of all the people on this panel. So I have two boys, 7 and 10, and so we are just navigating all the things with young boys, all the stinky parts of having young boys.
It's a fun adventure, though. Fun adventure.
It is a fun adventure.
Well, I thank you for coming off and joining this group. And so those are we'll wrap up our introductions and we will move to the heart of our panel meeting today, which are our child care zones. So I will pass this off and sit back and get to enjoy the presentation to Megan Kluth with KU CPPR.
Good morning, everyone. As Melissa said, I'm Megan Kluth with the Center for Public Partnerships and Research at KU. I'm going to share a little bit about the child care zones and what the initiative is, but I'm going to try to not talk a whole lot because I want the bulk of this to be you getting to hear from a few of our grantees and the amazing work that they're doing across the state. So just for a little level setting, the Child Care Zones is a program funded through the Preschool Development Grant. It started in 2025. It's been overseen by KDHE, the Department of Health and Environment, and supported by us at CPPR, as well as the Children's Cabinet and Trust Fund. And the purpose of this funding was to ask at least 2 counties to come together and work in a really collaborative way to say what are the biggest childcare needs they're seeing in their area. So there was really an opportunity for them to define what those priority areas are and share a little bit about why and what they felt like the approach was. And the purpose of this was people who live in their communities and work in their communities and whose kids go to care in their communities know the areas the best. And so I think we had some thoughts on what we've seen as major areas of need for childcare around a lot of communities in the state, but certainly wanted to give that autonomy at the local level to say this feels like the most critical thing right now. So we have 7 grantees. You're going to hear from 4 of them here soon. And we have a really nice mix of people from the community. Again, I think collaboration is the #1 word with this grant. And so we have early childhood educators. You're going to hear from a center director who has really taken on a leadership role, several community foundations, economic development leaders, local government and community coalition members, as well as quite a few people who, again, live in their communities, have families in their communities. So as of right now, these projects will wrap up this fall with PDG funding. But yeah, I'm excited to show a little bit of how much has been done over a year to a year and a half for these grantees. Next slide. So just so you know where they are, again, we have 7 grantees. You can see each kind of different color shows that they are all, we've got 2 to 5 counties that are working together. We didn't plan that they would be this geographically adjacent. It just kind of shook out that way. I like to describe it as an inverted T across the bottom of the state. But I think it's one thing that's been really fascinating about this work is we have a lot of communities that have, at least in part, highly rural areas. And so seeing the differences in what those rural communities look like throughout the state and also ways that they can really work together. And honestly, many of them have already been working together long before these childcare zones. So it's been an amazing group of communities to work with. And again, you're going to get a little taste of what they're doing. And you can see in the bold who the grantees are and the depth of community partners that we have. Next slide. So what is different about the childcare zones? I think one thing that has been very neat about this process is I mean, Kansas has been fortunate to be able to award quite a few different grants around childcare in recent years. And so the idea was like, how do we learn from that? How do we build upon that? And so I think what's a little different, though not to say this wasn't happening in other previous grants, is we really took a model from KDHE. They have a model called Aid to Local around public health and how they administer funds at the local level. And so it's really about trying to figure out the kind of the right balance of that state local partnership. So again, that local autonomy to say, this is what we need, this is what we think is going to work. Here are our strengths, here are areas we need some help. And leveraging state funding, connections, making sure people feel like, to use Melissa's words from earlier, I think we've been able to kind of do some support with them. If you ever need to phone a friend of like, hey, we really need this, I don't know where to find that. So we've paired funding with, we do a lot of like meeting with them, trying to provide as much just support as we can, but also like letting communities drive. Again, this is about like local level infrastructure. And so we've talked a lot through this process about like culture change when it comes to childcare, like what's different at the end of this grant in your area when it comes to childcare than when it began. So that can mean just awareness and the way that people think about childcare and see that it is a critical part of a community's well-being. We also have a lot of people who are working on really increasing capacity and making sure so often there's one or two community leaders that are doing amazing childcare work while also wearing 15 other hats, which is great until they maybe decide it's like time to retire or they need a break or whatever. And so how can we expand on their expertise and make sure that there are other people committed to childcare who have skills and knowledge, and that it just feels a little bit more like a shared responsibility. And then again, we really wanted to build on foundations. So we have quite a few of our grantees have received other types of state or federal funding around this work. And so they've really like kind of been able to build with each grant that they've had, build different pieces. And many of them are blending and braiding other funding sources to maximize their impact to this grant. And then lastly, again, the requirement of having at least two counties and really building that collaboration. I think in many areas that was happening. And this has been a way to just kind of like formalize that. In some areas, it's a new thing. And so really looking at childcare a little bit more at a regional level, I think has been a very meaningful part of this process. Next slide. Okay, so again, I promised to not talk for too long because I want you to hear from the grantees themselves. So we have 4 of them. We're going to start with Betsy Davis, who is with the McPherson County Community Foundation and her grant, which is supporting McPherson and Marion counties.
Well, good morning and thank you for having me. Oh, Megan, thank you for fixing my error on my first slide. Whenever I do stuff in Canva and whenever you like pull it down, like there's always some formatting issues. So I had some oopses this morning or yesterday or the other day when I sent it to Megan. Yes, so like she said, my name is Betsy Davis. I work for the McPherson County Community Foundation, and we are working with Marion County, specifically Tristan Cope, from K-State Research and Extension. They're in Marion County on our childcare zones. And I want to kind of give a little bit of a backstory about how Tristan and I got together, because we've actually been working together longer than childcare zones. And largely, it's just because of the overlap that we find. Lots of folks come into McPherson for work, and Marion County is one of the counties that they often come from. And so Tristan and I had been talking probably starting back in 2023 with Accelerator, actually, because they were working on an H4C, and we were that's where we started connecting, was back then. Anyway, so next slide, please. Yeah, so our big focus is we have several. One of them is infant and toddler slots. That was something that we had in common across both of our counties. Supporting providers, as I heard you guys talk this morning about like increasing professionalism and other things as people see them. So that was also a very important thing in our 2 counties. Increasing access to in-person education. This was something that we had piloted actually with Accelerator dollars. And that was something that the providers really loved. I had people were saying, "Oh, I remember in the 1990s when we used to come together and do this, that, and the other thing. I wish we could get back to this. It's all online now, and I don't like it." And so that seemed to be a real important element to our community. And then also providing provider capacity. You know, having education is great, supporting them in other ways is great, but making sure that they have depth and capacity, not only within themselves, but also within the profession, was also very important for both counties. We can move to the next slide. So this is a snapshot. We were awarded back in year one. And so this is a snapshot of what we were able to do in year one. First off, we worked with 34 centers, providers, excuse me, not centers, because we do have 6 centers that we worked with, but the rest of them are home providers. So that was something that was new for me. I had largely worked with the just McPherson centers, but Tristan really had a way of getting in and gaining trust with those home providers, because that's what most of Marion County is home providers. We were able to distribute out between educational opportunities, technology support, and infant and toddler stipends, the 70,000, approximately 70,000 to the 21 providers in McPherson County, and then about 50 to the 13 providers there in Marion. One of the big things, and I'm really, really happy when we see this number, because this also, it's talking about braided funding, goes along with some of our the foundation's granting priorities. So our big gap is infant and toddlers. And so one of the things that we did, knowing that we couldn't completely remove the gap between cost of care and tuition for infants and toddlers, we just wanted to try to help support it a little bit, try to reduce that negative number on those students. And so we started offering, for any licensed provider that was in partnership with us, for an infant and toddler stipend. We from the foundation, we're also able to bring in some of our money to help renovate some classrooms, so that they were then able to open up and then support those additional kids. And so in the first year of this investment, we were able to open up 35 more infant and toddler spots between the 2 counties. And so that actually increased our overall infant spots between the 2 counties by 23%, which is like not nothing. We were very excited about that. And then with the infants, or excuse me, the toddler spots by about 8%. Again, not nothing. And so yes, it was a lot of work. Yes, it was a considerable amount of money, but we were able to get that need, like the infant and toddler need, just decreased a little bit, and allowed more folks to seek licensed care and go to work. Next slide, please. Like I mentioned, we started offering in-person opportunities, and we largely have been partnering with Casito. And this is actually a slide version of our flyer for our next week's program. We have been hosting monthly opportunities for learning experiences, and we're using one of our local colleges' auditoriums for this, in addition to the program, the educational experiences. We are following a mentorship schedule. So that was the next thing we want to chat about, is that, again, expanding capacity. We started a mentorship program where we have, I think, 12 individuals who are paired up and work together on a variety of things, but we set out a schedule of the different professional identifiers that they needed to, or they should be like working with, and we consulted with our childcare community with these. And so the learning experience matches what the mentorship objective is for that month. And so if you're going to our learning experiences and also doing your mentorship, everything should be complementing each other really well. And you're growing in your capacity as a practitioner, but also growing your community that you are working within, and just knowing again that who should I call for this? Oh, I now have a mentor that I can call and ask questions of whenever we need to. Next slide. This is the next thing is we wanted to help support our providers by helping increase their visibility. We have in McPherson County, like I mentioned, a lot of like center providers, but then in Marion, it was all home providers. And so we, after getting a number of requests to have like supporting individual groups hosting a website, we were like, you know what if we did a provider directory? And so that is what we ended up doing. We launched this in January, I believe, and have received lots of positive feedback. We do have, if you want to click to the next slide, you can see what the provider side looks like. So this is our provider page. So this is after you filter down that you'd like, center provider. And this is a little blurb. Haley Pavlovich is the lady in the picture. She's the director of Christ Kids, and she has filled out in the little rectangle all of the special things about her provider or her center, and then also provided a little bit more context about her and her center, just to kind of give folks a little bit of a human touch when they're looking at opportunities in the area. We do have on every single, well, not on every single, but like on the main page and at the bottom, directions to Child Care Aware of Kansas. And every time we do get an inquiry through the chat with us, we do send directly to Child Care Aware of Kansas for the resource and referral portion. Also, for this is a opt-in. The providers had to agree to work with us. We did not put anybody up here without their express consent. And most of them, so Haley, you can see her nice little photo. That was something else that we had done during one of our learning experiences, is we actually brought in a professional photographer to do headshots for our providers. And so now anyone who came to those sessions has a nice picture to have, whether it be on this directory or if they're, have a like LinkedIn or I don't know, whatever, wherever they want to have their headshot, they all do have one now. So then thinking about coming up. So as Megan mentioned, we are coming to a close this fall. And so what do we do from here? Because, just because the funding's gone does not mean that the problem or what we were trying to solve for is fixed. So some things coming up for us. We are planning with many of the zone's assistants a regional business summit, at least one coming up in August, with Reno County, Rice County, Harvey County, Marion, McPherson, and I think that's it. I think it's just the four. But as we're like, we're not Wichita, we're not Salina, we're kind of in that middle area, but we still do a lot of sharing of workers, a lot of sharing of providers. And so having more of a regionalized approach to that business summit made a whole lot of sense. We will be continuing our support as best we can through our child care endowment, which is something that we have been actively working at growing really ever since Accelerator. We've worked at getting that to be a size that it is helpful. We right now have enough money, as a humble brag, we have enough money in it to pay for the directory and also for when Brightwheel goes away from state support, we can also pay for all of our centers' basic Brightwheel subscriptions. So I was real excited about that. If those two things are the only things that I can continue without extra endeavors, that would be, I'd still call that a win. And then we're also consistently looking for how to, besides incentivizing and reutilizing existing spaces, how do we expand licensed care offerings? And we have identified and are working with both local and regional funders and municipalities on 2 other small center license types that hopefully will be opening in the near future. Again, and then so hopefully not doubling down, but really focusing in on that infant and toddler care, and hopefully having some business supports, especially with the changes in the tax credits, both on the state and federal side. We have fingers crossed that we'll be able to continue some of those incentives through that kind of partnership. The last slide is just a picture of me and Tristan, both taken by the photographers that we had come in for our providers. And so if, Betsy at McPhersonFoundation.org, Tristan is, I think, tcope at kstate.edu. I'm not 100% sure. If you have questions, comments, do reach out to us. We've got lots of stories, if nothing else, about the work that we have been doing in our 2 counties. Okay, I think my time's up.
Thank you so much, Betsy. We will hold for any questions at the end just to give everybody plenty of time to present. So next we have Candy Rushing and Gentry. I apologize, I should have put your name on here, but Candy Rushing and Gentry Page with Grow at Eden.
Hi, my name is Candy Rushing. I'm the founder of a childcare center group of childcare centers actually in Southeast Kansas. I just myself personally, I have 4 little boys, ages 11 and under, all the way down to 20 months old. So to the boy comment earlier, we have a house full of boys. I'll just leave it at that. But Gentry is my colleague, and she has done a lot of this amazing work that I'll speak to today. She's done the dream work that I've always wanted to do. So we appreciate this opportunity from the Child Care Zones grant to be able to carry some of this out in our communities. Next slide. I want to talk just a little bit about Grow at Eden and kind of our vision. We started our program in 2021, just off the cuff of COVID. We started the planning process before COVID was even a thing, though, in 2019, and we just kind of had to push through those kind of uncertain years, and opened really at a great time where we were thriving within a few months because everyone was getting right back into work and right back into school at that time. So our vision from the beginning is just a place where we focus on the whole child. My degree is in kinesiology, health and wellness. So when I think about someone being whole, I think about what they're eating. I think about where they're spending most of their time, which should be outdoors, especially for a young child. And then also just, are they being engaged by someone, a teacher, to develop their language, and not listening to digital music all the time or watching anything digitally. So all of our facilities are screen-free, and we have a scratch kitchen, and we spend a lot of time outdoors in nature. We also are a Montessori-based program, so a lot of it is practical life exposure, building independence in the child from a really young age, and then teaching them to care for things that are plants and glassware in the classroom, and not being afraid of having mistakes happen, because mistakes are great, really awesome learning opportunities. Next slide. So we currently serve families in more than 3 counties, but really 3 cities. We have a facility in Iola, a facility in Parsons, and one in Pittsburgh. We currently house 430 childcare slots for children ages birth through school age across 3 counties. And we do have projects in the pipeline that would add an additional 340 slots, bringing the total capacity of Grow at Eden and all of our affiliates to 770 childcare slots across just 4 counties. 50 jobs have been created since we first began in Parsons. And over the years, 819 children have either inquired, toured, enrolled, dropped in, or spent some time in one of our facilities in the past 5 years. Many of our graduates that go on to pre-K in a school district or kindergarten come back with us in the summertime. So we have a pretty robust summer program as well. And I already mentioned kind of what makes Eden stand out. Next slide. This is a slideshow we showed to Senator Marshall as he came and toured our buildings. So we spent a lot of time just really highlighting that this was funded through the PDG. We know that he has direct capabilities to influence the funding received through the Preschool Development Grant. And so we were highlighting being an awardee, and we were highlighting what we have done with the money. We appreciate this being administered by KDHE. And our partners that we wrote into this grant were a couple of school districts, USD 506 that currently operates a preschool program in our Parsons facility, and USD 413, which will be in our 4th county that we haven't really touched much on, or that I won't touch a lot on in this slideshow, but that's Neosho County. And in 2027, we will have a child care center in Neosho County in partnership with the school district. Allen Community College in Beth Tolan, she has done a ton of work for us in the Stones Grant in the realm of higher ed. And then our nonprofit Eden Early Learning Academy houses some of the equipment and really kind of the resources that we had already built upon before the grant that kind of helped to sort of segue into an amazing opportunity to promote classrooms to care for all children. Flipping to the next slide. I'll just hit, you've already seen that slide actually, because Megan shared that slide. So we showed that to Senator Marshall as well. And on the next slide, we just kind of talked through our initiatives, and we had 4 initiatives as well. Just high level, we focused on building strong families. Second, we focused on increasing access to early learning through our USD partnerships and capacity building. Actually, during this grant period, we opened the Pittsburgh campus, which generated 244 slots. It opened fall of 2025. And then in next year, we will have 180 slots in Chanute, Kansas, Neosho County. Our third key initiative was ensuring classrooms for all children through one of our biggest pieces of the grant, which is our sensory lending library. And we'll talk more about this in a couple of slides coming up. And then our fourth initiative was advancing career pathways in early childhood education, which is where our apprenticeship programs came in and the work with Allen. Next slide, Megan. Thank you. Or I don't know who's controlling this, maybe not Megan. Okay, so on building strong families, this is where we got into the employers' offices and talked with them about being family friendly. So taking Kansas's initiative and just carrying that out within our region. Gentry spent most of the time in the employer offices, and she talked with them about their policies that they currently have. Do they offer a subsidy for childcare expenses? Do they currently have partnerships with local providers? And if not, why? And maybe what is even the need for their employees? She gave them drop-in vouchers. And we'll talk about that just in a minute, more of how many we gave out. She gave them an activity kit, and the employer was willing to house that activity kit in their facility. And then she connected them with the Family Friendly Workplace Survey administrators to determine their specific need. We got to talk a lot about child care tax credits. Just recently, the additional 75% for Kansas has been huge. The information came out a couple of days before I had a really big walkthrough with a large employer in our area. And I called my CPA up right away and I said, can you just drop everything and tell me exactly how much to tell this employer that if you spend X dollars, you're actually only spending X dollars. And so she came back with all the knowledge of, they're a C Corp or an S Corp, and they can take advantage of, 70,000, not 75,000. She knew all of the lingo, and that was way over my head, way outside of my pay grade. And so I was able to tell this employer that if you spent just $100,000 on childcare expenses for your employees, that you're actually only out of pocket $2,000. And we walked away from that meeting with him, and he's like, I don't know why we wouldn't have a partnership. And he called me on my cell phone just a couple of days ago, and we're talking about a CEO of a really big company here in Southeast Kansas. So just shout out to the amazing bill. I know that there has been discussion around this Kansas tax credit for a couple of years. And I am really, really excited that we've made such drastic changes to make it a lot more incentivized for an employer to get involved. To give kind of a real life example, because earlier there was a question from Desiree, I believe, about how does this look like, how does this benefit maybe me or all providers. We have an employer within the Southeast Kansas region that is giving a $150 per month per child reimbursement for the child care expenses that they incur as long as they attend a licensed Kansas provider. So that is how it would benefit an in-home provider or a center, is when an employer just says, blanket statement, I'm willing to give $150 back to you if you take your child to a licensed daycare provider. Okay, flip to the next slide. So some additional family-friendly policies that Gentry mentioned to HR reps is just, do you have a private room for breastfeeding for mothers to pump? And what do your FSA plans look like? Do you have them in place? Do you have affordable healthcare benefits? What kind of education do you give when you have a new employee come in that's looking for local childcare options? More about subsidizing or reimbursing employee childcare costs. And what does that paid maternity or paternity leave look like, or remote work or flexible hours? So these are just some of the things that we talked through employers with or about. Next slide, please. A little bit more about drop-in vouchers for backup care. So when we did our local needs assessment for our county, our second most pressing needs for families was backup childcare. So when their providers closed for the day due to illness or vacation, they did not know where to take their child that day. Grow at Eden used a previous grant award graciously from Child Care Aware of Kansas to purchase $8,000 worth of drop-in vouchers. We gave them all away. It was 160 vouchers that were given away in Lebec County, and the employee can just ask their HR rep the day of, hey, I'm going to be out childcare today. I'd love to be able to come to work. Can I take advantage of one of those vouchers? And they have been being used, and employers can also purchase more. So this is a really great way for employers to get involved, low cost of entry, and definitely helps providers stay in business and families to kind of stay where they are. I know a lot of times a center is promoted as we're open all the time. We have lots of substitutes, and so we're not closing because we have 4 sick people, but we're still open. But we want that in-home provider to stay open. We don't want families to leave them because they're consistently sick or they're consistently on, taking a day off work to go get their hair done or go to a medical appointment. So we really wanted to support our community in the way of keeping children where they are, just giving employers a little bit more to give away to them to help with that. Next slide. This is the children's activity kits. These were really exciting. We used a previous grant, also Child Care Aware of Kansas, that we had already purchased quite a bit of this material. And then the time spent to take them into the offices was done by Gentry. There were 30 activity kits that had been donated to local businesses, and the value in that activity kit was about $400. Its intent is for it to be quiet activities for children to stay entertained, maybe while their parent is doing some office work for a couple of hours. Perhaps they didn't have childcare for the day because their provider was closed. They had to bring them to work. The employer has a family-friendly policy that allows that. So here is a gift of all these little goodies that you can keep in your HR office and pull out and say, hey, look what I got today. And it's very small, but it makes the employer look just a little bit more family friendly. And our Lebec County Child Care Coalition prepped the bags for delivery. All right, flip to the next slide. I'm getting prompted that I have very little time left. All right, our second point is increasing access to early learning. So in this, we developed a substitute pool and our sensory lending library. We created new slot projects as well to help increase access to children receiving early learning opportunities. You can go on. We held after-hours events in both Lebec County, and then on the next slide, you'll see in a second also Crawford County, and here's just some of the fun highlights from those events. We had a lot of partners there from our area. We presented on a lot of different topics, including health insurance for providers, and have they tapped into those Optima benefits that are being provided to them. So we use that as a platform to really recognize local in-home providers and educators. I think we had 10 different in-home providers attend in Crawford County, which I thought that was pretty good attendance. All right, on the next couple of slides, you're going to see our sensory lending library. A big chunk of change went to inventory in the library to purchase $75,000 of all types of equipment. A play-based therapist was used to help us to purchase and identify what we should buy. The equipment is housed at 3 large centers, not just Grow at Eden centers. Actually, the Growing Place in Humboldt is housing about $20,000 worth of merchandise. In-home providers can check out this equipment 1 time per month. And currently, a lot of equipment is checked out and in-homes daycares right now. On the next slide, I think that there's a little video, a couple little videos maybe. I don't know if you can, when you click, it might play and it might also have a lag. That's fine. Here's all the mountain climbers we purchased. Gentry had a fun time opening all those. But that is an example of like a large piece of equipment that's professional and cost $1,000 a piece. So an in-home provider is probably not going to purchase this. It takes up a lot of space. So maybe they want it for 3 months to help with some big body work and gross motor play in their living room during the winter months. But perhaps they don't want it all the time, so they can give it back. And we kind of love this concept, and it's really exciting. The little video probably won't play, and that's fine. We don't have time. All right, moving on. This is a big project that we launched fall of last year. I think we missed one slide. There we go. This is the historic Washington School renovation. Just to let you know, this was a $7.5 million renovation. This was done by a nonprofit, Point Forward. They received lots of different funding sources, historic preservation money, CDBG money, ARPA funds, but $4 million of it was just private investment and donations. Local businesses saying, I want to chip into this. This sounds like what our community needs. And this is what created the 244 slots. So we were able to find an amazing executive director for this site, and she is building capacity like nobody's business, very fast and furious. On the next slide, you can see just a crazy, like, this is the before and this is the after. It's wild. It's like haunted house to gorgeous renovation. It's just a beautiful space. So if you can take an old, gosh, if you have somebody who's really excited about renovating historic buildings, it can be done, and it's gorgeous. Like to have tiny little children in the space that's just meant for education. It's really priceless. The next slide doesn't have to be highlighted a whole lot, but we did have Leadership Kansas come through Pittsburgh and tour. We've toured lots of people in this building. There's kind of an example of what our classrooms look like when they're fully furnished, and we can go on. So our third initiative was just ensuring classrooms for all. These 3 ladies here on the right were hired as intervention specialists. They collectively have 50 years of experience in early childcare education or special ed. We added 1 to each of our facilities. They support 15 classrooms and 150 enrolled children. They use the sensory lending library. 0 children have been dismissed during this period for challenging behaviors. And they partner with all of our other partners, Greenbush, Infant to Toddler Services, and Parents as Teachers. And the next slide is our 4th initiative, which is advancing career pathways in early childcare education. We do biannual professional development with Allen Community College. We focus on interpersonal training, where we talk about communication with each other in a childcare setting. What does that look like? How do we avoid any obstacles that might come about when we're talking about working with other professionals and other facilities? So it's just a lot about being a professional. Wage and bonus incentives through Kansas registered apprenticeship programs and the OER, which we'll highlight on the next 2 slides. I feel like I'm just rambling. But the next one is wage and bonus initiatives. And so we have a competency-based program through Allen Community College. It's a ECE certificate that Beth Toland has developed. And when my staff enroll in these programs, or the Growing Place staff, the Family Resource Center in Pittsburgh has students enrolled. Can you flip to the next slide for me? I'm so sorry. There are 15 total apprentices across all of our facilities in Southeast Kansas, including those additional childcare centers. But once they complete that, they're receiving a $5 increase in their hourly rate. after a 2-year period. So it's a really great way to invest in our employees and give them a quality wage in childcare industry. There was just a couple more slides, but I might just be over my time. So I can be done.
Thank you, Candy. And we'll send these
sure.
out so people will be able to dig in, and we can also make sure to share your contact information too. So if people want to learn more, they can get on a call with you. Thank you for highlighting the amazing work going on in Southeast. All right. I believe Tabitha, our very own panel member, Tabitha Rossboy, who happens to be playing double duty in the child care zones, is next. So I think, Lindsay, if you can help us get there on the slides.
I'm so sorry. They were advancing on my screen, but not for you all. So I apologize.
Okay, happens.
We'll get there. I was like, yeah, the stuff is on screen. So my bad.
You're good. All right, Tabitha, take it
All
away.
right. Hi, everybody. Most of you are familiar with me, but probably not in this capacity. I live in Winfield, Kansas, which is in South Central Kansas, and I am on the Cowley County Child Care Collaborative Board of Directors. As you know, in early childhood, we got a lot of letters, a lot of C's, a lot of E's, and I am representing today the South Central Child Care Circle, which through the Legacy Regional Community Foundation was a recipient of the Child Care Zones grant. And we are a 5-county partnership, all rural: Chautauqua, Cowley, Elk, Montgomery, and Sumner. So we are just at the bottom of that T on the map, if you don't know where we are. Winfield is famous for the Walnut Valley Bluegrass Festival. A lot of cool things happen in South Central Kansas. All right, we can go to the next slide. And also what's so funny is I also did this in Canva and then downloaded it, and I noticed 2 errors. So maybe you guys won't catch them, but I see them. So this work really stemmed from the work of our community foundation, which is also representative of all of South Central Kansas, Legacy. And Legacy is super involved in any facet of community building and things that are important to the community. So they were already doing a lot of work around childcare, applying for grants, working to build capacity. But the Child Care Zones grant has allowed us so much impact in our area, in addition to partnering with people who are close to us, who can also grow and be impacted and share with us in Cowley County. And so it was cool to start from this perspective of one county originally with the work, and then reach out to our partners who are also doing great work in other counties, and then to share resources with each other. But part of the way that we decided what to do with our Child Care Zones grant is like local information, right? Which is what's so great about the zones. We were doing things like community surveys, focus groups, our data walk, which we heard a little bit about last month, or maybe the month before, I'm trying to remember, about data walks on our recommendations panel call. We worked with Child Care Aware, just a lot of different areas and committees already focused on childcare that we brought together. And what we found out was that providers are overwhelmed and often feel really isolated, especially our home providers, that families are really struggling to find and keep quality care because we might have centers that have been around for a long time, but there's not very many of them. But we have home childcare providers that are opening and closing, opening and closing. And it is really hard, just like we heard from our other 2 zones friends, to find infant and toddler slots. This is a big thing. Our providers have limited access to meaningful support and training, and that means that we have tons of dismissals, we have tons of suspensions, we have tons of kids with high challenging behaviors and nowhere to go, and then their parents can't go to work, and it becomes an economic issue, which we all know. Also, that our systems don't always include the people that are closest to the work. Every time I get into a room, and I am in the early childhood sphere, I know that, but I'm not a childcare provider. And so often I'm sitting in rooms with people that represent childcare providers, and there's not a childcare provider voice in their room. And so it's really important to us that we are empowering and encouraging our childcare providers to be the leaders in this work. All right, you can go to the next slide. So our approach has a lot of prongs, okay? I would say we are ambitious in our approach. But we really wanted something in our zones that was relationships centered. And so we decided to go with conscious discipline as a guidepost for the work that we are doing, and you'll hear more about that later. We also really wanted providers and families to be getting educated together. We know that building common language and common practice is really important to supporting children. And so we needed those two populations working together. Our main goal is supporting childcare providers, but we want to bring families right along with them. We also really wanted this to be a community-based thing and not just, a program or one program. We wanted it to really revitalize what was going on in our community and build on that locally. Okay, can go to the next slide. So here's what we have built so far. And we are in this like 1 year. We are this new round of funding. So I'm so excited to get to the point where we have way more numbers and data like our last two friends do. But what we are providing is conscious discipline training for providers and families. So that looks like 4 Saturdays where providers can get KDHE clock hours, and that's supported through the state of Kansas, but also through Cali County Community College. We are providing childcare and meals. Stipends, which you guys know are important, and gas cards are available. The stipends are for providers, the gas cards are for families. And then we are also using a lot of community partnerships, other community foundations, other local businesses, parents as teachers. We are really trying to bolster the work with childcare and getting our local businesses to understand how important it is to invest in them. And so we have partnerships every single one of these weekends that we're having a training. And it's a lot to ask a family to give up 6 hours on a Saturday. It's a lot to ask a provider who has just worked all week. But we don't want to close down a center to do the training, and because we know that it's really important that families have childcare. And so this is what we landed on. And we did poll at a conference that we held in December in partnership with Cali Community College, what would be the best days for the providers that were attending there. And we found that Saturdays and Monday nights are our best days. And so those are the days that we are capitalizing on. One of our other goals is to just build the infrastructure around childcare locally. So we wanted to create sort of a professional organization for childcare providers, and we are calling that the Early Years Village. And each county has an Early Years Village seat, but there will also be some collaboration amongst counties. As a part of that work, we are also offering mini grants to providers. These are between $1,000 and $2,000, and we have had so many applicants for those. They can be for startup, for people who are just starting up their childcare business. We've also worked with local libraries to create books all about starting up a childcare in your home. We have like Eckers, we have conscious discipline, we have family engagement, we have infant toddler activities. They can check those out from a local library, or they can apply and receive their own set of those books as one of our smaller grants. We are also working to help use some of that money to create a system that will eliminate some barriers for the substitute pool. I have had a lot of great conversations with people around the state about how they are doing their own fingerprinting in-house, getting, licensed or qualified to do that, how they are paying for the background checks, things like that, how they are doing recruitment of people that they know best. And so that's something that we are working on putting in place. We are also working on ongoing support after this grant ends, and sustainability too will be a piece of that. In this picture here are two of our grant coordinators. On the left, that's Amy Jo McWirt, and she has a lot of experience in grant writing and grant facilitating. And then in the front middle in the brown there, that is Patty Wimmer, and she is actually our local child care surveyor at our health department. And her hours are reduced there now. And so they both do part-time. So originally we wrote this as like, we'll hire one full-time person, but it actually worked out that we have two part-time people offering different kinds of brilliance to this situation. And so Patty has really been able to offer that relationship and trust with our home providers because she's been doing this job for 20 years in our community. And so everybody knows who Patty is. So this has been an amazing partnership. We also have monthly virtual coaching and reflection for parents and providers. And this is based around conscious discipline and what we learn. And it is all about setting goals for themselves and providing community support for each other. And so it's not like, I gotcha. I always say it's, I got you. I'm here for you. Right. And so all of the people that are involved in this process can come together every month and touch base. Our sustainability piece. So something we are investing quite a bit in is a conscious discipline endorsed facilitator in each county. So sometimes you'll know if you get a training and then you don't have the money to support the coaching after and the ongoing pieces, that it's really hard and things falter. And so we didn't want that to happen. So we're working with Conscious Discipline on a new track that they have to create these endorsed facilitators, which means they're going to receive high levels of training and support from the company to then be supported by someone here locally and be able to coach and provide training for our providers on an ongoing basis, right? They will have sort of a certification from Conscious Discipline in order to be able to do that. And so we are also working to create a bigger cohort. We're in talks with friends from Allen County and talks with friends from Kansas City to get even more endorsed facilitators across Kansas, which we think would be amazing. We're also supporting our early years village with some startup costs. And so we have taken a note from some of our other friends doing this childcare zones work, and we really want to provide things that like people don't think about that are expensive. Laminating, Velcro dots, tape, hot glue, things that these providers are going to need to lead some of their own professional development and their own make and take activities, their own sensory bin building in the future. And so we're creating kits for each county in order to have some flexibility as they decide what kind of professional learning they want to do together. Okay, you can go to the next slide. So here's what we're seeing, okay? These are some of our early wins just doing this work over the last several months. We're seeing participation across all 5 counties. And as you would suspect, there is more participation in the bigger counties like Cowley and Montgomery. And one of the challenges that still remain for us are engaging more with the providers in our tiny counties. So that isolation didn't end overnight just because we created this approach. So it is very relationship centered. It is very much like, hey, word of mouth, like we want you there. It's important that you're there. It's important that we are using those tenets of conscious discipline, not only at the training, but in all of the work that we do that are building this like broader childcare family. We're having ongoing engagement month to month. We're getting incredible feedback from our families and our providers on how this is changing their lives and how it is shifting their approach to discipline and to self-regulation and their partnership with their center. And also, one that I received just last week is how they felt that it's built trust between them and their childcare center. So, we have the childcare providers and the families learning alongside each other, and they just feel so much better knowing that they're practicing discipline the same way. We are also seeing a lot of provider to provider connection. And some of my favorite moments are when providers who are a little bit quieter, a little bit more isolated, are reaching out and saying, I want to be involved. And so there's some exciting momentum happening here. Can you go to the next slide? So what we're learning is that incentives do help. Okay. I will never not say you should pay people for their time. You should get them there. But relationships are what's really driving the participation. So we're saying, yeah, we're hooking them with the incentive, but what's keeping them around is the relationship that they're building with one another, which is what we suspected when we wanted to create these early years villages, and we're being proven correct in that. Families have to be included from the start. Again, I don't think we can do this work alone. My full-time work is in family engagement, but I would say this even if it wasn't. Families and providers, schools, we all have to work together. We are, branches of the same tree. It's important to be flexible, right? I think we're all finding that we have these grand ideas of exactly how it's going to go when we start, but we find out like things change, right? People change, positions change, deadlines change, and we have to be a little bit flexible. So that's been a good lesson for us as well. Community partnerships are really amplifying our impact. I can't say this enough. Our community partnerships make us thrive. And when providers see businesses investing in childcare, those people are more likely to want to recommend to work at that kind of a place when it comes to their families. I just think it's like so symbiotic that families and childcare support and invest in one another. And then also small supports make a big difference, whether that be providing the childcare or a meal, whether that be being available for an email or a phone call. We have some providers who are not familiar with the internet, like, and don't know how to use Zoom. And so Patty will go over to their house as the licensing surveyor, and she will help them figure out how to open a Google Doc or how to open a Zoom call and get on. And this has been a big thing. Those little things that we take for granted that everybody just knows how to do have a lot of impact. Okay, so what's next? All right, we're going to continue our cohort, which is what we're calling it. We have a family cohort and a provider cohort, and all of this coaching through September. Next week, we are launching the rest of our early years villages in our remaining 3 counties. We've been doing that sort of slowly. We're going to continue to build the provider leadership and refine that model for sustainability. And so we have applications in for our endorsed facilitators. We're starting that interview process, and we're going to launch right away. Like, they're going to go to a week-long training in conscious discipline and then, start with the rest of their requirements to becoming an endorsed facilitator. Okay, go to the next slide. Oh, and that was it. I guess I thought I put a context slide in there, but I didn't. Thank you guys so much. I just want to say again how thankful I am for the work that all of you are doing, the leaders in other counties who are inspiring us every day. And of course, for KDHE and All In for Kansas Kids, because we couldn't do this work without you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Tabitha. This is, I get the pleasure of getting to hear this every month, and I'm still like having some feelings about all this amazing work. So I hope others are enjoying. We have one more presentation. We have Julie Lyon, who's going to share a little bit about what's going on more on the South Central to Southwest part of the state.
Good morning. I am Julie Lyon, and I have the biggest zone with 5 counties. It's also probably the most spread out zone. So I have 2 counties that touch, and then 2 counties that don't, and then 2 more that do, and then 1 all the way out in western Kansas. But I didn't have any slides today because I think a lot of the work that we've been doing is similar to others, but also different. And most importantly, the work that we're doing is not stuff that can be seen. We have been building on, I'm one of those that have been fortunate to have blended funding. So started with the accelerator grant, learned a lot through the innovation communities there, what worked and what didn't, and have been able to take and share those with this zone's grant funding. So the biggest thing for us is we have our money in buckets, but we've been very flexible and know that we can pivot when needed because that's the way childcare works. It's important to me that people know that you don't have to be in childcare or have an early ed degree to support childcare. And so there's been a lot of relationship building. I serve as the chair of the Kingman County Commission, which I think is important when talking to other counties about how childcare can work and is intertwined with workforce and economic development and growth, not just growth, but sustainability. And that's really been the mission of this zones grant is what can we build now that will carry over into the next several years once the funding is up. Just some quick examples of how we've pivoted and how we've used our liaisons to become really the core of, I don't know what to do. Who do I reach out to? Let me ask. And our providers, I hope, feel like they can reach out to us and we've been able to shift and say, hey, we can work this into this category and make things happen. So anywhere from facilities maintenance to sub pool. The biggest thing for us is that this has opened the conversation with our providers, and whatever needs they may have, they feel comfortable reaching out to us, and then we can respond appropriately. This happened here just recently. We had a church that was operating a licensed daycare. They decided they could no longer support that, and so I received a panic call. You know, they sent out letters that said they're going to close in a month. You know, we don't know what to do. And I was able to go and meet with them and worked it out. So we used zones funding to purchase supplies and materials to keep that facility open, and then partnered with a local business to establish a long-term rent a long-term lease. So we know now that this facility can stay open for at least 2 years, which gives us time to find other funding to support that, and buys us a long time. The other thing is three of my counties are the smallest counties in Kansas. So Comanche and Kiowa County are in the top 10. Morton County is right up there, but Morton County only had one childcare provider in the entire county, and we're going to be able to take our zones funding and partner with other grants to establish 3 more licensed facilities down there. But when I talk about opening the conversation, knowing that we had some zones backing, not knowing which category that was going to come out of, we were able to say and talk to investors, and we actually got a building donated to us because we didn't know how we were going to make it work, but we knew that we had zones funding that we could at least have the conversation and explore things that couldn't be explored otherwise. And I think that's the biggest thing out of this is communicating and feeling like we have some flexibility and able to partner knowledge and funding together to really extend our reach. It's not just our zones, counties that look at us as like leaders. We have surrounding counties and those in between that ask us questions all the time. And while we're not able to support them with funds, we're able to have the conversation, which has built a really good partnership between a lot of counties, more than just the 5. So I'm going to keep it short today. I'd probably talk the most, but with 4 to 7 minutes, I just wanted to say I'm grateful for this, and I think the flexibility in this has really been helpful.
Thank you so much, Julie. And thank you to all of our presenters. Again, I hope you got a little taste. We could probably spend many meetings going through all the details of the work that has been done through the past year and a half with these projects, but I'm very appreciative of our grantees sharing. Are there any? I know we're gonna move along pretty quickly, but I wanted to hold time in case anybody had questions.
Well, people are thinking of questions, Megan. I would just like to make a comment because as the Cabinet's early childhood system specialist, I have had the fortunate opportunity to sit in on some of the zones meetings. And I know Megan and I joke, but there have been several meetings when I've seen Julie come on with additional funding. So talk about braiding and blending. I always love to see Julie with a big check in hand. And so honestly, Julie, not seeing that today, always, a little disappointed there because that Julie is really moving. And when we're on screen, we usually see some type of cattle in the frontier counties of the areas that she serves. And so love all the being able to join that and with all of them. And then Tabitha tapping into the group of not just, where that whole wraparound of including families and making sure families were included and really tying that back to the Kansas Office of Early Childhood in those earlier conversations we had a few hours ago about how do we make sure families are a driver in this work was really important. And then Candy, I've had the opportunity of being on work groups with Beth Tolan, so know the moving and shaking that is going on and solidifying what the community college can do in your area, and actually had the pleasure of staying in Allen County a few weeks ago and seeing some of the real work. So just appreciate everything that's going through there. And then Betsy let me come crash one of her meetings with mentor meetings. And so really being there with providers and getting fed really good food and being there to hear all of the system and what they are needing. And the professional headshots mean a lot to folks and being able to see themselves as a professional and all of that. So I just had I've been a part of this work over this last year and a half. And so just love to see everything that is happening. But if there's any questions, we'll take any. And if not, I see a lot of love in the chat, just saying, sending lots of hearts, emojis, and great job. So not really a question, but I do want to be able to spread out all of the good feel and vibes that are happening there after our presenters. And with that being said, if anybody does have anything, as Cornelia said, as you're laying asleep at night and wonder what, have a question for any of our members today, from our members to our guests today is really what I meant to say. We will connect you. And Sarah Bloom, I'm going to share her comment out because I think it's great. What an inspiring morning. Thank you all for presenting amazing, impactful work. And I think that is like the mic drop we're going to end on. And we will move to our next update, which is Megan again, as we talk about some systems update with our preschool development grants. So I will pass the baton back to Megan again.
Perfect. Well, thank you. Just a few quick things we wanted to highlight. So as a reminder, we're wrapping up our preschool development grant. We have 29 different initiatives through this grant, so we always want to give you a little sense of what else is going on. Childcare Zones is a big one. Also wanted to highlight the Care and Wellness conferences. Some of you may have attended. We had those in Wichita and Salina last week, and they went incredibly well. I think we had 60 to 70 people in both groups, and then we're hosting one in Olathe that actually has a wait list, which is a good problem to have, but I would love to just be able to make that space as big as possible to get as many people in there. But this is a space that's really talking about infant and early childhood mental health. We have a lot of partners at the state level and at the local levels coming together and sharing all sorts of different resources for families. There's some opportunities to do some ASQ training for professionals. It's open to anyone, including families. But it's just been really incredible to see for the second year of these events, the engagement really picking up in these areas. And I think I heard there were quite a few positive tears of people feeling connected last week and feeling supported and being able to share their experiences as families and providers in Kansas. So we also have several employer engagement events coming up in the next few months. Actually, I think the first one happened earlier this week. Several of our counties through the Child Care Zones are partnering with Child Start through PDG to host very local conversations with employers, which is really great timing with the tax credit updates that were made. So this is a chance to say, across our few communities, what do employers want to know about being more involved with childcare, and where they're helping them understand there are hundreds of different ways to be involved kind of at whatever level they want, and helping have just very like one-on-one conversations with each other about what that looks like. So most of those are pretty like closed invites, but wanted you to know that's happening because we've heard a lot about the importance of employer engagement through this work. I also wanted to highlight that we are, I think, on our 5th or 6th month of the Infant and Early Childhood Mental Health Community of Practice. That is being led by our partners at CAME, the State Association for Infant and Early Childhood Mental Health. This has been a very, again, high engagement group. It is open to anyone who wants to come. It was set up in response to hearing a need for more mental health professionals around the state to really understand what's available at the early childhood system in terms of resources, and particularly as they're serving young children and their families. And I think on the flip side, people in the early childhood system wanting to understand what's going on in the mental health world. And so there have been wonderful presentations and conversation just to make sure that people know what is available. And if there is something that's not available, have a space to say, hey, we really need some training around that, or things like that. So those, again, they're open. We can drop the link for registering in the notes. Those are open to anyone. And also, if you have something that you're like, oh, I feel like our resource would be a really good thing to share with more mental health professionals around the state, that is a great place to do that. So just reach out. And then lastly, I just wanted to highlight, we had a PDG partner meeting a few weeks ago, and we heard from the Casito team that the CAPE portal now has more than 16,000 completed profiles. They just had their first birthday not too long ago. So that number kind of stopped me. And I want to say that it's more than like 10 to 12 other states that have had registries significantly longer than Kansas. This is, while the work has been going on for many, many years, having a life portal is still a relatively new thing. And to have 16,000 people go in and complete profiles is no small feat. So I just wanted to give some shout out for that. And I think for this group too, of just the collective effort to help promote that and make sure it's a beneficial tool for the system has really been amazing.
And Megan, can I also just put a little
Please.
cherry on top of that? We have lots of training orgs that are migrating into CAPE. You'll see CAPE sends out media posts all the time of other, but the repository of training is just amazing that is available, and it's not isolated to, I want to really keep Trina here in mind. It's not isolated to just childcare providers. It includes any profession in the early childhood. And I really encourage everybody to either one, create a CAPE profile or go look at the training opportunities because you will find a depth of training that will, if you're working in early intervention, if you're working in home visiting, if you're working in childcare, if you are in the well-being space as a social worker who's looking for CEUs, there's really a depth of training opportunities in addition to the 16,000. And let's raise that up to 17,000 by the end of, honestly, I think we can do it by the end of the summer and really have that workforce registry illustrate the early childhood ecosystem in Kansas. So thank you.
I think I took
that
two more quick
Okay.
ones, Melissa. Next slide, Lindsay. Okay. Again, just wanted to shout out Casito. They shared at our last meeting about they hosted a play-based lesson planning cohort with childcare providers around the state, which I just thought was like, it's such a feel-good sentence to be able to say with you all. Just wanted to share. I thought that was a really unique learning opportunity and something that they, again, were just responsive to kind of hearing what some of the needs are of our early childhood education workforce. So 41 professionals were able to participate in that, and I've heard a lot of good things about that process. And then lastly, wanted to shout out our partners at Lend out of KU Med. They have a certification program, excuse me, around supporting kids with all different levels of need. And they were able to get 15 childcare providers in this year to complete that. So lots of good news around. Just wanted to give you a little sprinkling of what's going on with PDG, and I'm sure I'll be back again soon to share more. So thanks for the time.
Thank you, Megan. And so as part of our recommendations panel, one of the pieces we always like to have is a key takeaway, and really wanted to zone in, no pun intended, after I said that, and it popped into my mind about our childcare zones, and that lasting change is most successful when solutions are designed with communities, when we are in partnership, not when we're top down, but when we're really foundational and we give the driving seat back to the locals. When the zones really started as a thought process with the PDG grants, Megan and I and some panel members actually and some other community members did interviews as a part of this project. We sat through 24 hours of interviews with potential grantees. And the excitement that we heard through those interviews and those that were eventually rewarded, I would have to say it was a job well done, because not only do we have successes, but we also gave a safe space for to fail, to things to say, hey, let's throw everything against the wall and see what's going to stick. And it's okay if we don't always meet this benchmark, because at least that's an opportunity to learn more. So that's really what I've been so excited about this about this process with the zones. And I will see that after the funding has moved away, there will still be lasting change and some sustainability with these projects. So very pleased to have been a part of that very first onset of interviews to where we are today. So thank you guys. And then as we wrap up, just reminders that the Children's Cabinet and Trust Fund will have their regular meeting on June 5th. And what I did want to share is I wanted to thank anybody who's listening and any of our current panel members who have applied for the 26-27 panel. I was just overwhelmed and just so excited to see the number of applicants that we received. I think we are in a good space and realize we are doing something well when you have so many applications and knowing that we are going to have to go through those applications and put forth a slate that may not include everybody in that has graciously applied. And again, I'm humbled by that because this is giving up your time and space to be a part of the recommendations panel. We, as a state system, do not take that lightly. So a lot of thought and consideration will be made as we review those panel applications. And some information will be forthcoming. But on behalf of the Kansas Children's Cabinet and Trust Fund, thank you to all of those who have applied and want to continue this journey with us as we move into the Kansas Office of Early Childhood. And then a reminder that we move back to our fourth Friday, and our next actual panel meeting is June 26th. So we're going to have a little bit of time in between that. And with that, we are formally adjourning, and our panel members will have their work groups open. And we'll be able to meet, and we will keep those open until I think we roughly keep those open until around noon, until you no longer need to work. And then we will look forward to our June meeting, which will be all about your work group presentations and what you've explored. Again,